In a quiet suburban neighborhood, tensions flare when a routine traffic stop takes an unexpected turn. A white police officer confronts a black man, but what starts as a standard interaction quickly spirals into something much darker. Witnesses gasp as the officer's words cross a line, leaving everyone stunned. The man, calm but visibly hurt, stands his ground, while bystanders pull out their phones, capturing every moment. What happens next sends shockwaves through the entire police department and the community. This isn't just a story about prejudice, it's about courage, accountability, and the ripple effects of a single decision. As the situation unfolds, hidden truths are revealed, and unexpected heroes emerge. Stay with us to find out how one act changed the lives of everyone involved, challenging stereotypes and reshaping conversations about justice. What would you do in a moment like this? Keep watching to see how this powerful story unfolds. As the phones recorded, the officer's harsh words hung in the air, leaving a silence that felt heavier than the summer heat. The black man, identified as Marcus, kept his composure, his voice calm but firm. He explained he had just left work, providing all the necessary documents. But the officer, whose name badge read Davis, seemed uninterested in listening. Instead, his demeanor grew sharper, his words more pointed, while onlookers shifted uneasily, unsure whether to step in or stay back. Marcus had faced moments like this before, but something about today felt different. He glanced at the crowd forming nearby, their faces reflecting a mix of shock, anger, and fear. The tension between the two men was undeniable, yet Marcus refused to escalate. What Davis didn't realize was that someone in the crowd was already making calls that would soon bring this incident to light in ways no one expected. As Marcus stood by his car, his steady resolve began to shift the atmosphere. Some onlookers started murmuring among themselves, questioning why Officer Davis was so aggressive over a simple traffic stop. A woman in the crowd, Sarah, a teacher who lived nearby, decided to step closer. She had seen too many videos like this, and her heart raced as she pressed record on her phone. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself, but her hands trembled. She knew this moment could go either way. Meanwhile, Officer Davis's radio crackled. A call from dispatch reminded him that other officers were on the way, but he waved it off, determined to assert control. He didn't notice Marcus watching in carefully, picking up on the cracks in Davis's confidence. Marcus wasn't just standing his ground for himself. He knew this moment was bigger than him. In the distance, the faint sound of sirens grew louder. Marcus's mind raced. Would the arriving officers escalate the situation or defuse it? And what about the videos being recorded? With every passing second, the weight of the moment pressed harder on everyone involved, as if the entire neighborhood was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The sirens grew louder, and the tension on the street reached a boiling point. Officer Davis, now visibly frustrated, ordered Marcus to step away from his car. Marcus calmly replied, "I've given you everything you asked for. What's the problem?" His unwavering tone seemed to unnerve Davis, but instead of backing down, the officer stepped closer, his voice rising. The crowd tensed, their phones capturing every second as a small boy whispered to his mother, "Why is he yelling at that man?" Just as the first backup squad car arrived, Sarah stepped forward, her phone still recording. "Officer, is this really necessary?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with concern. Davis turned toward her, his face flushed with anger. "Stay out of this," he barked, but her question hung in the air, piercing the tension like a sharp blade. Two officers exited the squad car, their expressions unreadable. As they approached, Davis's grip on control seemed to falter. Marcus glanced at the newcomers, silently weighing his next move. The crowd murmured louder, sensing that something monumental was about to unfold. Every second felt like an eternity as the moment teetered on the edge of chaos, the outcome still a mystery. As the two officers approached, the crowd fell silent, their attention shifting between Davis and the new arrivals. One of them, Officer Patel, surveyed the scene with a calm but serious expression. The other, Officer Hayes, locked eyes with Marcus and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, as if to acknowledge the gravity of what was happening. Davis, now visibly agitated, gestured toward Marcus. "This man's being uncooperative," he snapped. Before Patel could respond, Sarah's voice cut through the tension. "Uncooperative. He's been calm the whole time. We've all seen it." She turned her phone toward the newly arrived officers, her voice steady but charged with emotion. The crowd murmured in agreement, emboldened by her courage. Davis glared at her, but his usual air of authority was slipping. Then, a voice from the crowd shouted, "Check his body cam." Heads turned as a young man in a hoodie stepped forward, pointing at Davis. "If he's in the right, why's he so nervous?" The suggestion sent a ripple through the onlookers. Patel's gaze sharpened, and she turned to Davis. "Your body cam is on, right?" she asked, her tone measured but firm. Davis hesitated for a fraction of a second, a moment so brief it might have gone unnoticed, but Marcus saw it. So did the crowd. The air grew heavier, the stakes higher, as everyone waited for what would happen next. The street seemed to freeze as all eyes locked on Officer Davis. His hesitation was impossible to ignore, and Patel's question hung in the air like a challenge. Davis straightened, fumbling for a moment before responding. "It's malfunctioning. Must have turned off earlier." The crowd erupted into gasps and murmurs, their suspicion now undeniable. Marcus stood silently, his calm demeanor unshaken, but his eyes betrayed the weight of the moment. Patel's jaw tightened as she turned to Marcus. "Do you consent to us reviewing any footage from bystanders?" she asked. Marcus nodded without hesitation. "I've got nothing to hide," he replied. Sarah immediately stepped forward, handing her phone to Patel. Several others followed suit, offering their recordings. Patel and Hayes began reviewing the clips while Davis shifted uncomfortably, his confidence unraveling. Then, Patel's voice rang out. "Officer Davis, we need to talk, now." Her tone was sharp, commanding, leaving no room for argument. Davis hesitated before reluctantly stepping aside with her. The crowd, still recording, watched as Patel confronted him, her voice low but intense. Moments later, she returned, her expression resolute. "Officer Davis has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation," she announced. The crowd cheered, but as the officers prepared to leave, Marcus stopped Patel. "This isn't just about me," he said. "It's about making sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." Patel nodded, her respect for him clear. As the squad cars drove away, a small boy from the crowd approached Marcus. "You were really brave," he said softly. Marcus smiled, kneeling to meet his gaze. "Sometimes being brave is the only choice we have." But as the crowd began to disperse, a new voice emerged. A reporter who had arrived unnoticed, holding a microphone. "This footage is going viral," she said. "The whole country's about to see what just happened here." Marcus stood in stunned silence, realizing this moment was far from over. As the crowd thinned, Marcus stood quietly, taking in the weight of everything that had just unfolded. The reporter's words echoed in his mind. The moment they had all witnessed would soon reach far beyond this neighborhood. People came up to thank him, expressing their support and admiration for his courage. Sarah gave him a reassuring smile, knowing her decision to step forward had made a difference too. By the next day, the footage was everywhere. News outlets picked it up, sparking a nationwide conversation about accountability, respect, and the power of community. Marcus received messages from people he didn't even know, thanking him for staying calm and standing strong. Officer Davis' actions were formally investigated, and the department pledged to review their training protocols. Marcus returned to his daily life, but he knew this was bigger than him. He hoped the moment would inspire others to stand up for what's right, no matter the odds.